Suns fans, you know what time it is in the PHX.
Empire of the Suns.
Phoenix Suns.
The Empire of the Suns podcast is brought to you by Sonic. Sonic.
Empire of the Suns.
Hello there, and welcome to the Empire of the Suns podcast. My name is Kellen Olson. I'm joined, as always, by Kevin Zimmerman. What's up, man?
We're here. We're here for the trade deadline on this Thursday, and the Suns will be... Do you think they're active or do you think they have so little, they're just like, let's see what comes through our phone lines? Because for me, it's more about, like, who's calling them, what's out there. So far, there's not much noise, and obviously they're done with this road trip, so we can start there probably, right?
Spilling the tea a little early, my man.
It's called a tease.
We'll get there. But TEA is part of the tease. Don't
you
spill
can't
it.
spell. Yeah, you can't spell it.
Don't
without
spill it. You gotta present it to your audience without the shaky hands.
Yeah,
your hands are
shaky.
shaking.
Yeah, I'm shaky.
Mom spaghetti, get us together. The Phoenix Suns went 4-3 on their road trip, Kevin. A acceptable, solid result. I think that more of the takeaway here is that they easily could have gone 5-2, 6-1, 7-0. I don't know how you felt about the Hawks game necessarily, but we talked about the Indiana and Orlando games already. They beat the Nets. Kevin Durant's homecoming to Brooklyn at long last. Atlanta, it's just more of the same thing. Again, that was our last week's episode. We're not really going to do that this time. And then Washington was Bradley Beal going nuts and the Wizards looking like they just woke up. That was those games, and we're not really going to focus on them necessarily because not necessarily a milestone, but one of those like, that's right moments is that we are now 15 games into Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant being healthy consecutively in games, which one, you can use this time to blame me when one of them gets hurt and say that I was the person to jinx it. But two, this is enough of a sample size for us to really go off of and diagnose where the team is at right now. And I covered a lot of that looking at the Wizards win specifically, and some of my main takeaways were Bradley Beal needs to play better, which we saw against Washington, but him starting to look like himself. Basically what happened is Beal was playing this low usage role and looked like the perfect third banana for 4 or 5 games. There was the game in New Orleans where he was like guarding Zion for stretches. He was really, really good. He gets hit in the face, breaks his nose, and then across those next, I believe, 4 or 5 games, he shoots 35% from the field, including 3 of 24 from 3. Goes into this Washington game, finds a rhythm again, shoots 16 of 21 overall, scores 43 points, 26 of those were in the first half. But really where you watch the games and it's telling you that Beal needs to step up, but then you look at the numbers and they tell you as well that Beal needs to step up, because you watch this and Washington, they weren't playing defense against anyone, to be fair, but if you're watching who defenses are trying to take away the most, it is definitely Booker and Durant, like separated in their own tier by probably 2 or 3 tiers, and then Beal is in the next one. A lot of teams are treating Beal not so much that he's a non-shooter, but someone they're willing to help off of. And that is extremely surprising to see, because Beal has cemented himself for over a decade as a really good shooter in this league. He has not been a really good shooter this year. He has not been a solid shooter this year. When he's been wide open on threes this year, he's shooting under 32% from the field. If you look at his 3-point attempts compared to Booker and Durant with the tracking data that admittedly is wonky but tells you where defenders are, he's pretty much taking all of his with space, while Booker and Durant are taking a good percentage with a defender near them. That's not really what Beal is doing at all on this team. So he is a guy that should be shooting the best. For example, Booker on wide open threes this year is shooting, I think, 46% this year, whereas Beal's at 32%, which coming into the year, we looked at all these same kind of numbers, and his catch and shoot numbers were really good. His wide open numbers were really good, which indicated that when he has time, when he's in a catch and shoot role, it's going to go really well. This is not to say that it is without reason as to why this is happening. He has been in a situation right now where he hasn't been able to get a rhythm. He hasn't been able to establish himself. And in the middle of this 15 games, he breaks his freaking nose and has to play through this injury that's going on. But I think the main thing to watch for me over the next 4 to 6 weeks is if he can start to look like Bradley Beal again, because he's really honest with a lot of what he says after games and stuff, and I'm sure he'll be the first guy to tell you that along with those 3-point numbers, but just his play in general, he's got so much more that he can provide, again, for Suns fans not initiated. 3-time All-Star, 3rd-team All-NBA in 2020-21 season when he averaged 31 points a game. He's an excellent basketball player, and he's been solid this year, and they just need more out of him, especially with the amount of money that he's making. To be clear, I expect that to happen, but we're at game 51, 52 of the season right now, and it's at that point now where he really needs to start to get going now, or else they're not going to be as big of a threat that we thought they could be.
Yeah, go back and look at the Suns games against Washington. He looked like that Booker guy on a bad team where he kind of should have been demanding the double teams, and he's definitely not going to get those in this. By the way, we missed Thursday? Devin Booker made the All-Star team as a reserve. Mm-hmm. That's very nice, but he made that because coaches know, and you can tell by how they react to him on the court, sending doubles his way, sending doubles KD's way, and it's really easy to see why Beal has all those open shots. So, you go look at it, I think he's just feeling things out, maybe trying to pass a lot. Like he had a 9 assist game, 10 assist game a couple games back when he had a low scoring output, and like that's great. But again, these 3 guys are at their best when they're attacking, and they just need to find him spots. And I do think like Book getting in foul trouble in Washington really, I was like, hey, this is a great opportunity for like Beal to learn. Okay, I only have Durant to worry about. That going up to number 2 for a significant stretch really did kind of click on him mentally. It looked like, and maybe being at home, his old home kind of mattered too. Just click on that. Okay, I need to be aggressive, and yeah, if I make plays out of this, so be it. But he needs to score, and I think, I don't know if they're probably not going to take the Charles Barkley route of benching the guy, but they're going to have to like feel out what makes him turn that on in his head, and he's going to have to get used to that. And like you said, I think it is more about comfort, and once you get a couple more games, again, 15 games of them being together under his belt especially, that's the next step, and then we can have conversations about, okay, all 3 of the big 3 are clicking, now what? But yeah, I'm not super concerned about Bradley Beal. It's just an important reminder, like, hey, it's February now, and they've got to figure that out quick before they get into the more detailed things.
The main numbers that have me back this up, and to be clear, something you thought of when you said that is, we both came into the season saying Bradley Beal has the toughest job out of anyone on the entire team. And doing what Chris Bosh did, doing what others did in this kind of third banana roll, whatever you want to call it, is extremely difficult. And that's to your point, and what I'm saying is that he needs to be in that low usage role sometimes. But then there are other times where, hey, you need to command these 3 to 4 minutes coming. Yeah. And we need you to be all NBA guy for these 4 minutes. But your other 26 minutes, we need you, like, it's a really tough thing.
Or if you are running point, run point in an aggressive mindset and attack out of it more a little, and not. That's the weird part about the point guard thing. It's like, okay, when they have it, like they're playing a little not like themselves. All 3 of them to some degree. Book's good at it. The other 2 not as much.
To that point, those 15 games in a like made me sit up in my chair thing when I'm looking through all these numbers and stuff. When Devin Booker is on the floor across these 15 games, 545 minutes, the Suns have an offensive rating of 126.7. That is nuclear. A 113 defensive rating. That is more than good enough to win a championship. That's like top 10 in the league, I want to say, off the top of my head. And when he's off the court, it is just a completely different story, to the point where it makes you even more critical of Beal, and to a certain extent Durant as well. Because when Booker is off the floor over these 15 games, that's 175 total minutes. Their offensive rating drops, again, 126.7. It goes down to 103.5. That is, we're throwing the ball to Bernard King. Offensive rating numbers.
That's like 2021-22 Thunder for worse. That was the last one, because when I was running it, I remember that. one of those very bad Thunder teams.
I'm talking like that's the Stone Age of basketball, 103.5 offensive rating, just with pace and all that kind of stuff and no one taking threes. The defensive rating jumps to 121.4. That altogether is a negative 17.9 defensive rating, or net rating, excuse me. And then the net rating overall for when Booker is on the floor is 13.7. So that's a difference of like 30 points per 100 possessions in those little pockets of the game when he sits at the start of the second to the start of the fourth. Here's the thing, Kev. Everyone's suggesting rotation changes and stuff. Why doesn't Booker come out a little earlier? Why isn't he's still going to be off the floor. You cannot just keep him on the floor for 40 minutes a game in the regular season. You can't do it. Now, this is going to become less of a problem in the postseason when he's playing 40 to 42 minutes a game, probably. But with that being said, it's still a problem right now, and it's something that they need to figure out. They're going to have these 12 to 16 minutes, and you need to preserve him for the playoffs, so you cannot be playing him 39, 41 minutes a night with where he's going. Some of the other numbers. When Bradley Beal is off the floor, the offensive rating of the team is 120.3, which is really, really good. For Kevin Durant, who might be, I think, in my opinion, is the best offensive player in the history of the game, 117.7, which is pretty darn good. For comparison, the Suns' offensive rating on the season itself is 118.2, which is 7th in the NBA. So they're still a top 10 offense when Kevin Durant is off the floor, but they turn into like the Washington Bullets when when Devin Booker is off the floor. And I don't really understand. I do understand why, but the drastic change, the number one bit of data that stands out with what changes and everything. Assist to turnover ratio, Booker 2.33 when he is on the floor, which again, we're talking that's top 3 in the league right there. 1.02 when he is off the floor. That is a full half point worse than the team in last this year. Like that is
when we're dealing with 2 points being good, then or a point off is not good.
It's really incomparable. Yeah, 1.02 is really, again, I think the team that was in last was Portland with like a 1.52, and then the like someone in 29, I think the Pelicans or something, Magic maybe, were like 1.69. So that is by far and away like that's brutal. So I say all of that in a way where, again, to that conversation we're going to, but something we're going to talk about a little later, point guard, which is like, do they need a point guard? No. Could they use a spot guy for 12 minutes a game? Yes, because we're at that point now. We watched over a month of these guys play, and the minutes, the offense is just not good. It's very, very bad. In fact, it's historically bad when Booker is off the floor now for those little chunks of minutes. But didn't want to move on from that conversation without giving our due credit to watch out what you're saying on the internet, people. He'll come find you, Mr. Yusuf Nurkic. When he's on the floor over these 15 games, the offensive rating is even better than Booker's. It's 127.9. Net rating overall, 12.12. The defense is really solid. When he's off the floor, it drops to 112.7. Defensive rating holds in a solid spot at 114.3.
What about moving him to the bench? Well, not like not starting, but like,
is that a
crossover more when there's non-Booker minutes?
Is this like a 40 chess thing you're doing, or are you being serious?
I'm being serious to run the offense through him when Booker's not there, and just not.
See, I thought you were.
That requires a whole new offense to be installed.
Because he responded today to the Charles Barkley thing about Beal coming off the bench. I thought you were doing some like Galaxy Brain stuff.
I wasn't doing Galaxy Brain stuff.
Okay, I give you too much credit sometimes, don't I?
No.
Nurkic, over those 14 games that he's played in, of the 15 where they've been healthy, he is shooting 59.4% from the field. Holy smokes, Kev, that is actually solid efficiency for a center. Before that, 48.7 in the 33 games prior was his field goal percentage. Wouldn't you know it, having these 3 elite offensive players around him, setting him up, and I think more importantly,
spacing.
Mike Vigil had the nice clip yesterday where it's like when he brings the ball up, or if he's in the initiation role at the top of the key, at the top of the circle, whatever you want to call it, the elbow. This ain't the Pac-12. You can't just sit there under the rim and let him cook and like be like, go ahead and take a mid-range jumper. You have to stand in the key or guard him, basically. Yeah. You can't just stand in the key. So when he does that, there's space. And when he brings the ball up, there's even more space. And he's just been phenomenal with that in particular. something I wanted to bring up is there are times where the Suns would force feed either JaVale McGee or Bismack Biyombo, and people would be very confused and very angry and be like, why are they doing this? There is an innate thing in basketball where empowering your big man is a very big thing, and showing confidence in your big man, being like, we are going to get you the ball, keep working, you're doing the hardest job on the floor, keep running up and down, keep rebounding, keep banging inside, we're going to find you the ball. There is a certain level of, again, intuition there to giving them the ball, and you can see...
did Mikal Bridges switch off on you, sir?
Yeah.
We should probably give you the ball.
We're not going to miss you. It's going to keep coming, keep fighting for position. We're going to get it to you. And you can tell that all of his teammates have the utmost confidence in the world. They're not going to look him off. They're not going to do any of that type of stuff. They are going to get him the ball. And wouldn't you know it, his confidence is there. I think that was the big battle with DA over the last couple of years, that they would get him the ball in those situations sometimes, and then he would not repay the favor. Nurkic is repaying the favor right now. By the way, like first 10, 15 games of the year, he was having some of those inconsistent, like not looking very confident moments, but they've just untapped this very confident version of him that has been there in the past in his career, because they are empowering him, because they are making him a legitimate part of the offense. Because, hey, there was one play where he was at the top of the key and he was the guy basically making the decision, and Booker was on the left wing. He was kind of coming around ready to come get the ball, but Nurkic went the other way instead and was like, no, we're going to get Brad the ball again. And then Brad came around, and like that's him being the quote unquote point guard from like media day or whatever. He's the guy making the decision on what they're going to run. Like he can go either way there. Yeah. But he went to get Brad the ball. It worked out to a good possession, all that kind of stuff. He's been really, really good, and I wanted to call him a top 10 center over the last month in the league, but the center position is incredibly deep and really, really, really good. Like the 8th best center in the league is probably, like, I don't want to butcher the rankings here or whatever of guys, but it's still someone really, really good who could be an all-star probably. So I didn't want to go that far, but he has been... I was someone, you and I were both more optimistic than most on what he could provide, but with that being said, I don't think we expect him to be capable of stretches like this. And he's been really darn good, and to the point where, yeah, maybe he's not going to close playoff games, but they need him for those other 24, 28 minutes or whatever to start the game. Like, if he gets played off the floor, so be it. But at the start, they need to see if it works, because they're a different, far better team when he's out there. And I think that he is the one guy who can not get hurt outside of the big three. I think, like, if I had to rank, like, who do they value, who's the most valuable to this team outside the big three, he's probably number one for me.
Because there's not a viable option behind him. And also, by the way, when we talk about what teams are serious matchups, it's Nuggets, it's Clippers, and those guys have big guys. Like, for the same reasons Nurkic's value doesn't get enough juice, like Zubac has been on that team rock solid at center, whatever their iterations have been of their star players the last few years, for a reason. And again, it's like, okay, you want to play off the 300-pound, 280-pound dude, fine, but you better be really, really efficient when you go at that. And if he's played off, then they're going to lose something, but it's tough to do. And I think that's what Nurk can be for this team. Plus the offensive stuff, like also... not just throwing in the post, but just as a roll man. People don't think of a slow, non-jumping guy to be like gravity, but the Nets game was another example of, yeah, if KD is finding him, like I think 5 of his 8 assists or whatever were to Nurk in rolls basically, then like that's really good, and there's value to it, and then your threes start opening up and all that good stuff. So yeah, I mean, most important dude outside the big three, I would agree with that too.
The trade deadline is Thursday afternoon. I think 1 o'clock local time is what we're looking at here. And the Phoenix Suns have some work to do. They have limited assets, but they have work to do. And to your point with what you were talking about, there is going to be some like first round picks being tradable that are going to open up over the next year or two, like future first round picks, if they want to keep not putting themselves in the hole necessarily, but keep eating into that future draft pick reserve. But they have limited assets right now. Nasir Little is the one guy who comes to mind that we've talked about previously, just because he is one of the 3 guys. This is how the roster works, Kev. Kevin Durant makes $47 million a year. Bradley Beal makes $46 million a year. Devin Booker makes $36 million a year. And then you've got Nurkic at 16.8. Grayson Allen on a 1-year expiring 8.9. And then there's Nas Little, $6.2 million the first year of a 4-year, $28 million deal. And then after that, it is a bunch of guys on minimum contracts. So typically to facilitate trades, if you're kind of new to this thing, those mid-tier contracts are valuable for making certain trades happen around this time of year, specifically when in season it's more difficult to make things happen. That's why Little logically makes sense. The background here, he hasn't really played much this year. There's a nagging knee injury. There was a nagging other thing that kind of kept him out, and he is sort of, since getting healthy in the last couple of weeks, has been sort of phased out of the rotation. Essentially, it's been a Kogi, maybe KBD in some stretches, and it looks like more so Bull for that other wing spot, because you got Eric Gordon, you got Eubanks, you got a Kogi, and then it's like that 9th wild card spot, if you want to call it that. He hasn't been getting those minutes. He has at times. At times he's played well. At times he has not. You can look at his deal and say, okay, he's not playing on this team. You can't trade that contract. It is not the right way to look at it, because he's on a $28 million deal, and contracts are getting more and more expensive by the year. By the back half of that deal, it's going to be really cheap and like not close to the minimum per se, but Eric Gordon, who's on the high tier of minimum contracts because he's been around the league forever, makes 3.2 this year. Like he makes half. So it's not completely out of this world to put the contract in that same kind of range. And he is a guy who is 23 years old, who has a ton of fans around the league. There are plenty of smart basketball people who saw the DeAndre Ayton trade and were like, Nas Little is going to be the guy who swings that trade for them in their favor. That hasn't happened necessarily, and that's not to do a haha told you so kind of thing. It's more of a
yet.
He is going to have some interest around the league. Now, how much interest is he going to have? Is it going to be enough to facilitate a kind of deal right here? We don't know, because you have to attach assets to him beyond that to make a deal work for someone who could fit into your rotation. And here's where we're at. This is nearly mathematically impossible at this point in the season already, but from the campaign trade, which, by the way, to the backup point guard talk, to rehash something from a couple months ago where we didn't want to speak on if that looked like luxury tax stuff or not before we saw the rest of the offseason. It looks like it was luxury tax stuff. They traded away campaign to save money. It saved them $26 million. That's something you got to do sometimes.
You got two picks?
They got this Spurs pick, I believe. They got 2 picks, and then they got it. There's a swap somewhere in there, I believe. So again, we're not completely. The jury is not totally out, but it's starting to exit. Everyone is starting to form a line at the door, basically, on what that trade was about. They have the Spurs second round pick next year, but it is heavily protected, 31-54. So unless the Spurs go undefeated the rest of the year, then that pick is going back to the Spurs, and then the Suns don't see anything from there. They own a 2026 second round pick, which is the least favorable between the Pistons, who will probably here's the thing. We're now, with the rest of these picks, we're talking so far down the line, we can't sit here and say, yeah, the Bucks, it'll be the Bucks second round pick, because they have, it's like, will Giannis even be in Milwaukee then? I don't know. Will Dame even be there? I don't know. Orlando, like, who's there? Like, how much money are they paying all these guys? I don't know. It's the least favorable between those 3 teams. Detroit, Milwaukee, Orlando.
It's a pick.
It's a pick. In 2028, it is a 31-45 protected one from the Boston Celtics, and then an unprotected second rounder from Memphis Grizzlies. Shout out Isaiah Todd. Shout out the guy.
Dude, honestly, 2 picks from that trade, right? Yeah.
2. Yeah, the swaps there were huge. And then the same goes for the Memphis pick in 2029. The unprotected second round pick there.
They lost
as
a pick
well.
Also because of the tampering Drew Eubanks thing. So
they would have had a second round pick this year. Yeah, I believe it was 6 that they were going to have, but then they tampered for a backup center, and they need a backup center, and it would help them to trade for a backup center with another second round pick. So, whoops. Hey, you live and you learn.
4 picks. Are you doing
4 second round picks? But here's the thing. People's jobs are on the line. You know what I don't like is when I think I might get fired, and then someone tries to offer me picks that are 5 years from now. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be around to make that pick,
that is
sir.
True, yes.
So I don't know. And that's just sort of another like ABC 1, 2, 3 kind of thing with the trade deadline to understand is that picks lose value the longer they go down in years, unless you're talking about first round picks and you're talking about first round picks that have lighter protections. Second round picks, not so much. People want second round picks right away to use them sooner. So yes, 2028, 2029, that did get something done. Like the Suns, for example, had interest in getting those. but can they get someone else to have interest in them? That remains to be seen. They can, to be clear, like it's something to trade. And a lot of these situations, like remember PJ Tucker getting traded from the Suns to the Raptors?
Yeah.
They got just 2 second-round picks that were in the high 50s. It was basically, let's get PJ to a contender. Those kind of things can't happen.
Do you want to go down and see most tradable assets, or just talk about it blankly? Because
one more thing I should mention. Trade exceptions. Again, this is where the campaign trade comes in. They got a $6.5 million trade exception. So if they don't want to trade Nas Little, they can figure out a way to keep Nas Little, which you point out in your story today. Like, you could still develop him, and it's not out of the question. Like, you don't really have many developmental pieces on the roster at all, really.
Yeah.
And he's the one, essentially, outside of him. And I guess if you want to count Grayson Allen, but he's in year 6 right now, whatever. $6.5 million exception. Shout out campaign. $5 million. Shout out Dario Saric. Can you combine these into $11.5 million? You sure can't, Kevin. You can't do that. Can you combine them into other things? No, not really. It's basically, hey, you're getting a player that's worth $6 million.
Jay Shante was one. Then that's why that one was a jump to conclusions.
Mm-hmm. Here's the exception. Here's 3 second-round picks.
Yeah.
There we go. And then you cut someone to make the player slots work. And then that's pretty much it. One more note before we go over to just like assets and like what they need and all that kind of or what they need and targets. This is the last time that they can aggregate salaries. That's a big word. A lot of
combine.
A lot of G's in there. Basically, what it means is, again, I'm talking to myself here. Like when I read it, I'm like, what does that mean? It's like, okay, right. They can't combine player salaries. So like you talk about trading 2 guys for 1, you can't do that anymore. 3 for 2, no. You can just do 1-for-1 trades after that. Now you can trade one of the big 3 for 3 or 4 players. You can do that, but then there's more salary crap you guys don't care about that other people smarter than me that understand this stuff better can explain to you. That's a bridge to cross when we get there. I hope we never see it, Kev. I hope we just never see that stupid bridge. What if you could wave your little wand, Kev, that you've been known to wield from time to time? What would you think? What would you get the Suns right now? There's a backup point guard, but that is a very specific, like, hey, you might play 8 minutes, you might play 20. Depends on the night, depends on who it is. You could go get a wing who is not going to start, but it's going to take that Josh Okogie wild card role that we talked about. Or would you go get a backup 5?
I would get, and I don't even know who this player is.
Because this is the choice they're going to have to make, I think. Yeah. I don't think they can get more than one of these things. They can get one of these things now and then maybe get lucky on the buyout market, which is where I lean away from backup center, because I think a backup center is probably going to be available on the buyout market.
Yeah. My whole thing is, I think, and I wrote about this on ArizonaSports.com, but you need to get someone on who's a rotation player for sure, who at very least you can re-sign or is on a multi-year deal.
Because you don't got no mid-level exception. None of that stuff
they're going to have to pay in taxes anyway. The Grayson Allen thing, for example, if he gets a pay raise, resigns, then you can still trade him later because he's a good player and a good contract.
Someone on a multi-year deal, or you retain their bird rights.
Yes. So we want bird rights here. And you want someone who can play multiple positions. If I had the perfect player, it would be someone who can be a backup big, but also plays wing.
You know who you just described?
OG Anunoby.
Torrey Craig.
Kind of what Bol is doing right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
But just more reliable, has a longer track record, that kind of thing. And that's why it's just hard, man. I think from a versatility standpoint, that's a big one. Point guard, if you go beyond like a TJ McConnell, DeLon Wright would fit. Who else?
So that once we get past TJ McConnell, Monte Morris, Tyus Jones territory, any point guard after that, you're only getting 1 second-round pick, and that's it. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm using the exception in that, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's all we're doing.
So like a DeLon Wright, actually, you look at his not playing a lot for a bad Raptors team. Wait, no, he's on the Wizards, sorry.
Think of what Ish Smith is on a basketball team. That's what we're talking about. So it could be actually Ish Smith.
Where is he right now?
I don't know. I forgot Monte Morris was on the Pistons because he's been out injured all year pretty much.
Ish Smith would be good. But I'll stay on my DeLon Wright example. Decent three-point shooter, solid defender. I don't know what his injury history lately is like. Makes, I think, $9 million. That's one where it's like, okay, like you would, but the problem there is you would have to give up somebody, maybe a draft pick, exception.
Ish is on the Charlotte Hornets, making $3 million a year.
Interesting. That'd be a great offense is moving, pace is up. Not a lot
man.
of defense, but
I just need the veteran who knows,
yeah.
Let's not take 17 seconds to
floor
get Katie in the
spacing would be a
mid-post, that
little
kind
of an issue, which is like if Jordan Goodwin, honestly, I would give him another shot at earning rotation minutes. Maybe they will soon if he could shoot a little bit.
We're friends, right?
Yeah.
You're being too picky.
Yeah. Okay.
They can't be this picky.
Okay.
You just need a basketball player who can play playoff minutes. That's it. I don't care what he does.
Should I go down? Should I go down my list?
I came very. You should in a sec.
Okay.
I came very close to saying like if the Suns trade for 3 backup centers, I don't care as long as all 3 of them are good. Like it's just good, meaning I know they will be in the playoff rotation. So for me, we talk about fit and need. We were a fit and need podcast for many years talking about the NBA draft, and we're going to return back to that space right now because what I think it has to be is like you can talk about like point guard, whatever. No, it's like if you can get if you can find a guy who is going to be in your playoff rotation, who is going to give you 14 minutes that are decent and reliable, get that guy. I don't care what position they play. Again, they could be a point guard and they're only going to play 12 minutes.
What's realistic to get?
That guy.
Monte Morris would be that guy, you're saying?
I don't know because like last year, Obi Toppin went for 2 second-round picks and I was like, what?
Yeah.
And KJ Martin did, but now KJ Martin is probably available for that same kind of price again.
True.
You think and you think guys are out of the realm of possibility. You're like, no, Obi Toppin has too much potential, and then wham, it's like, no, like we don't want to pay him. Here you go, whatever. The Suns would love that type of opportunity to arise. I don't know if there are any type of candidates like that who are first-round picks coming off of their deals who were like bird rights are retained, restricted rights are retained. Is there anyone special like that kind of comes to mind? You're putting together the list, I think, tomorrow, so I think that would be my call to you is like, is there an Obi Toppin that exists out there? The names that I mentioned were those point guards. I proposed like I'm not really going to call about Dorian Finney-Smith, but I'm going to call about Dorian Finney-Smith just to like tear down to Royce O'Neal when all of a sudden I really wanted Royce O'Neal. Torrey Craig makes a lot of sense. We've talked about Kenrich Williams for multiple years. I think that backup center not only is one of those things where it's just definitively easy. Like if Andre Drummond's on this team, your team is better because he offers some of the passing that Nurkic does, not nearly to his level, but he just gives you rebounding and that. Again, can you play him for 20 minutes in the postseason? No, but you don't need to. You just need an impact guy at times over that stretch, and that's what he can be. There's a weird thing going on in Orlando where Goga Bitadze was playing well, but now he's not even in the rotation anymore. It's worth a call. Jeff Green's playing for Houston, but Houston kind of isn't that good, and I believe he's on a 2-year deal, and is someone that you could retain for over a year, and you could just really fully embrace small ball, and then reunite one of the greatest videos the internet's ever seen. What's up?
Is Reggie Bullock on the Rockets still? Mm-hmm. Not playing much?
Nope.
He was good last year. Can shoot, can defend.
Was he good last year?
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking.
Was it last year? I don't know. Should I go down my list?
Yep.
A lot of these are going to be like a hard no, but...
Hey, safe space.
Jordan Nwora was traded already, was just on the back end of that Pacers roster, not getting minutes, and then guess what? He gets traded to the Raptors, and he already had a 24-point game. I don't know what the Raptors are doing. He's from around there, so they're probably going to keep him, but he's 25, can score, big wing. It's probably off the board now. Cody Martin, multi-year contract.
Love Cody Martin.
Probably not going to get traded, but
he
8 mil.
He was a guy where when I was doing the fake trade thing that nearly broke me last offseason with DA and Chris, I think I had a Cody Martin deal in there, and I love Cody Martin.
I don't know what the Hornets are doing.
Big Cody Martin guy.
That's a really good contract, so they really shouldn't.
No.
Bulls, I don't know what's going to happen with Caruso. I don't think that you can get him, but that's one of those where maybe just nothing comes up for anyone else.
What is it, the doorman of the club? Is that the guy who lets you in or not?
I guess.
I don't even think they're letting you on the street of the club that Caruso is on. No, that's not happening, brother.
Dosunmu, I don't know.
Ayo Dosunmu, get the name right. Come on. He's a longtime friend of the podcast. You were his guy.
What did I say?
You didn't say his name right, and that's all I heard.
I didn't say his first name.
You said it 96% right, but I need that last 4% out of you because you were the guy who was like, the Suns should probably take this guy in the second round.
Yes, I was.
And then he turned out to be good. So
energy can make plays, defend.
I'd be down. Ayo would be tremendous, but I think the problem is the Bulls are going through this thing where they're like,
they don't know what they're doing.
I think we just have to like kind of like have Kobe and Ayo play a ton because they look pretty good, and then whatever else the rest of this is, I don't know. It'll sort itself out in 3 to 5 years.
Are there any Pistons on your list? There's probably some Killian Hayes. I don't know if that was a real report. I saw that he wants out, but that doesn't seem like it would be good. You liked him though coming out.
Have you ever not wanted to go someplace so bad that you elected to have surgery? That was wild. Look it up. I'm not going to talk about it.
The Pacers really, the guys you want are all in the rotation, and they are just shooing like 5 guys in. It's like a hockey lineup. I don't think that they would break that up. So we're going to pass on any Pacers.
I thought you were about to go Sticks. That would have been crazy.
Oof. James Johnson's what? Is he still on a 10-day? And he's friends with like KD, was on the Nets, I believe, with them. If you want to oversized wing to fight people, buyout guy. The Raptors.
James Johnson's a person. He's not just a fighter. Come on, be nice.
I know he's a good basketball player, but I don't know if he's too old now.
I think he's too.
I'm ageist for sure.
I'm not gonna say it out loud because he could roundhouse kick me in the ear and that's existence for me.
James Johnson could be the buyout candidate of the year, the Tim Thomas of this year. If I want to.
I loved Tim Thomas. He was so great. That 3 against the Lakers was, what a great moment in franchise history.
He did the Caitlin Clark thing before Caitlin Clark, actually.
He sure did.
The Raptors have a lot of interesting guys. We have our old friend Garrett Temple.
Kevin's been trying to get Garrett Temple on the Suns since I met him. Like, I met him 8 years ago, and it's been a lifelong pursuit for him. I would love it for him. Look at this
list, though.
Okay.
Chris Boucher, I don't know what's happening with him, but he's a little redundant. He makes too much money.
R.I.P. Pac-12.
Probably no. Jalen McDaniels is on a reasonable contract and does not play a lot. Is he hurt?
That was a weird, like, hey, Jalen McDaniels on the Sixers. Okay, no, and he's on the Raptors.
Someone can fact check me if he's actually been playing since the Siakam trade, but I don't know. Otto Porter is there. A reasonable $6.3 million contract, and he's Otto Porter. Did we have this discussion like 2 years ago or something about Otto Porter?
I was about to say we're nearly there.
That's not good. That
Jalen McDaniels is dipping and ducking and diving in and out of that rotation. Darko is playing him here and there.
Okay.
2 games here, 3 games there, games off in between, 4 minutes there, a minute there. Not really playing that much. Otto Porter is... I talked about last week where I'm worried about the TJ Warren, Terrence Ross zone.
Yeah.
Do you put all your eggs in the basket of a guy who might not be in the league next year? I don't know. I haven't seen Otto Porter play basketball in over a year. So.
Right. That's the weird thing.
Yeah.
And he's only like 30 or something, or 32. I don't know which, but it might not be good. That was the end of my list. But the point is, all those names that are probably like, what do you give up? Do you give up on Nas Little? Do you throw together a couple of the minimum guys who you think are not going to be part of the rotation the last time to aggregate them and get a bigger contract that's a little more tradable? Well, you want it to be a multi-year deal so that you don't have just never to use it and use that contract that person's on to become more assets. So I just think the big thing for me is you do ideally want to aggregate some salary if you see a good player who's on a multi-year deal you could trade later or is also part of your rotation. Like, you wouldn't do it unless you think they're part of your rotation, and then work the buyout market. And that's where I think they're at. I don't think you can even really package these second round picks to some great degree to convince someone, suddenly I will trade Alex Caruso for your 2 second round picks in the next century. Like, they're pretty not in a great place, but I will say that there are moves you can do, or even just sitting still if you don't get anything good, where there could theoretically present more opportunity at next offseason. And I know that's like pushing for this season and just rolling with your roster, but if that does happen, I'm preparing people to say, okay, like there wasn't anything there. Because, like, I'm very sure the Suns are trying. Whatever the rumors are, they're trying to find something right now.
Yeah, I think next year is probably the year to be the most aggressive. But then again, everyone's healthy right now. Mm-hmm. Do you know if that's going to happen again? I don't know.
And it's weird because, like, you can't look 3 or 2 years down the road even. Like, you just want to give yourself, if nothing lands for this year's team, you need to try to get something done for next year's team. 2 years down the road, don't worry about that.
2 years down the road is Kevin Durant on an expiring contract.
No worry. Yeah, don't worry about that.
That is a different conversation for a different day. Josh Okogie and Damian Lee, I think Gerald was the one who tweeted this, have veto rights on trades. I think that Okogie and Damian are probably the two guys right now where, assuming Damian is closer, like, is he going to play by March? I've been saying beginning of March seems reasonable. With no information on that. Those are the two guys that probably another team would be like, yeah, we'll take, but throw in da-da-da and we'll make it work. Those seems like the guys to me. I don't know about KBD. All these guys have certain fans around the league. Like, that's the thing. Like, KBD, Eubanks, Watanabe, Metu, Bull, Goodwin have all shown enough to have some sort of optimism around the league. But I just don't know how much it's going to fetch you and how much you're going to want to be willing to do that. Like, that wild card spot, I think it's probably just going to be Damian Lee in the rotation. If I had to guess right now who that ninth guy in the rotation is going to be, it's probably going to be Damian Lee, and it should be, because he was pretty solid last year, and I thought was underrated last year. And I think he's going to, if he's able to come in and look like himself coming off the meniscus injury and just play as hard as he did defensively last year and shoot the ball the way he did last year, it's better than what they've been playing with lately, for sure. We will be back on Thursday after the deadline, unless the Suns clearly make the trade that is like, they make a trade on Tuesday or Wednesday that is worth coming here about. If there is, we'll do it. And I'm guessing, like, I don't think that if the DeLon Wright for a second round pick thing happens, I don't think we're going to breaking pod on Tuesday night. But we'll be back, at the very least, we're going to be back on Thursday when the deadline's over regardless. Unless the Suns make a huge, like, 4 or 5 second round picks, swaps are included, and they get like an impact player on Tuesday or Wednesday or later this night, Monday night. We'll see. It's that time of year where we do that. This is my first trade deadline without caffeine, man. I'm nervous.
Oh, none.
Nervous. How do people do it, man?
I wouldn't know. I'm
gonna find out.
Good luck. That Sprite without the caffeine. What do you drink? What do you do?
I drink water, brother. That's all this gallbladderless
fellow
guy can handle right now. We're working our way back. I could dabble, but it just doesn't seem like the week to, like, try, you know? Because then I nuke my entire week. I just can't do that right now. That's too much information. Caleb Love is Pac-12 Player of the Year, everyone. If you don't think so, I think you're a fool. Goodbye, everyone.
Good Cats talk there. Yeah.